Everything I know from interpretation, or that I claim to know, that I say that I know, that I believe I know, that looks consistent, comes from mental processes. It comes from thought experiment. Hundreds, thousands of hours of thought experiment. The idea is to take this material, dissect it, put it in the psyche, into the life experience, or anywhere else in the world. Put it anywhere you can. Explore, explore, explore. Once you find a place up here where it goes, it doesn't matter what you read, no matter where it is in the world, that framework is still there. All religions and myths are based on the template of a human psyche. I've been thinking about this video for well over a year. I'm nervous about making it. My friend Stefan, thank you, Stefan. This is a response to a conversation we've had. And everybody else, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I'm going to take those 5 component parts that we live within and just plain language all of that stuff. Stop trying to extract it from the material. I'll show you why it's difficult. But what I want to do in this video is just, let's drop all of the ancient material. I'll take what I believe is the interpretation and put it in plain language. This is what we have to do. Set aside everything, sit down, and just think this through. Stefan, thank you. I'm still nervous about this. This is what the material teaches. I keep trying to show people how to read the material for themselves. At some point, I think that it's going to be difficult because they had a lot of time and we don't. Okay, first of all, I need to set it up a little bit. Stefan's okay with this, but anybody else listening, I want to say something. That anytime the term spiritual is used, I use the term myself because it is so common. But what I mean by that when I say spiritual is not actually what most people think. That, like religion, is a very vague term. What is spiritual? And to me, spiritual is an analogous term. There is no spiritual. What it means is mental, psychological, emotional. We live through our memories and the emotions of them. We don't live through something spiritual. It feels that way, though. Let's talk about that. And the reason this is important is because this is how we learn to interact with it. If you just call it something nebulous, spiritual, you're like, okay, I'm just floating along here, not knowing what to do. I feel this way sometimes, that way sometimes. I'm shooting for this. Sometimes stuff gets in the way. You know what? If you know what the issue is, you can interact with that. You don't have to just float willy-nilly along with that trying to figure out. There's a mental process and there's an observation that we can make upon ourselves that tells us exactly what we need to do. They knew that back then, and they put it into something that made it sound spiritual, mystical, supernatural, but it's not. They knew it was natural. I go there. People that are into the spiritual stuff go, I don't like that. I don't like what you're doing. And I say, well, this makes it interactive. This is what I believe it was. I don't believe somebody that was making the template was trying to teach that there's something magical, mystical, and supernatural out there. That is what they were using as the package, because they recognized that humanity needed a package instead of the truth. The truth is a scientific reality. It is emotional and mental and not spiritual. That is how I'm going to approach this. If you're okay with that, let's take a look at what's going on. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but let me just pop up a couple of instances where our material from antiquity is showing us this 5. This is from the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth from approximately 5,000 years ago. From Tablet 1, this is in reference to the called hero, Marduk, who represents us on the path if we're following this. It is a monomyth. It is a hero's journey. Marduk is us. Marduk is the first Luke Skywalker, okay? There were 5 almighty beams which surmounted his head. Okay, it's very old, and it's a little more primitive. Let's jump into something in more recent times. This is from about 2,000 years ago, the Gospel of Thomas. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change, summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. Now, those sound different. There's a 5 and a 5, but as far as there being 5 trees in paradise, sounds like something a lot different than 5 beams in somebody's head. So we have to understand they're both cryptic. They're both containing the same nested teaching, but they're using a different encrypting shell, a different carrier for it. Super simple example of that. It's a common one I use, okay? I'm a ship and I have an anchor. That means I'm hanging on to something. An anchored ship cannot sail. Whatever I'm hanging on to, I cannot let free of it. That's a spiritual teaching. I want to put that in a different shell so it sounds different. The dog in the yard cannot escape. The goat chained outside the tent cannot run off. All of those are holding the idea that if I am the component part of that story and I'm connected to something, I can't escape it. So that is what I mean as far as shifting the outer shell while maintaining the core teaching. Okay, what I want to do is identify what I call the analogs in here. Let's pop this, move ahead, and we see I've identified 5 trees. What are those? Paradise. What is that? Do not change summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. What does that mean? Knows them. What does that mean? I have to know them, so I have to understand this stuff. And if I do, I will not taste death. What does that mean? So I've identified those as the analogs that I want to know what they are, because that is where this secret teaching is. These go in my psyche. I have to know that. So I've identified the 5 trees, the paradise, the trees that do not change seasonally, know them, and will not die. Here's what I have. The 5 trees, these 5 qualities emerge as components of life. We have a higher awareness. We have a consciousness. We have a subconsciousness. That holds the base of who and what we are. We have the emotional quality of stored memories. We're always going to have our subconscious. Much of that is good. We live through memories and knowledge, and yeah, we do. We have to know where I'm hungry. Where do I get food? Where do I get water? Where do I find friends? All of those are important qualities. However, there are things that happen that are not good. They're also in the subconscious. So I've got the emotional quality of the stored memories. Some are good and some are bad. The subconscious is good. There's a dark area in there that we need to resolve. Okay, and then because of that, number 5 is the resultant flow of life and the experience that we have based on those, the alignment of those right there. Our life quality is based on those first 4. Now, moving on to paradise, this would replicate every teaching's destination. It's a mental quality. Other terms are nirvana, kingdom of heaven, promised land, inner peace, enlightenment, and many more. You know what? Golden fleece. What are you after? That's at the far end of the far side of the planet. That's at the beginning of your life. There are different ways of teaching the same thing in different ways. This is when we are not divided within ourselves. We are healed. Paradise is when you are no longer acting out, or you've got issues, or you've got concerns. Yeah, we're living in a good place. We move on to 3. Trees do not change over seasons, nor do they lose their leaves. Do they lose their leaves? Okay, work through the mental implication. Cycles are always present, and that's right here. In an energy-based universe, everything moves in waves, which is what? Constant cycles. Up, down, positive, negative. Here it comes, around, around. If it's moving in waves. Light moves in waves, okay? Everything moves in waves. Pain returns as long as we have unresolved issues. At some level outside of energy, we are still functioning in cycles. We're still functioning in waves, and what we're going to see is that if we have something unresolved, it's going to continue to emerge again and again, except that typically it is going to amplify if we don't resolve it. We need to make that stop. Now, in this case, paradise emerges in the saying, paradise emerges when the cycles stop, and that happens when all 5 trees and aspects are aligned. 4, know them. That's what this whole video will be about. Sit back and relax. 5, will not taste death. If spiritual death is implied, it isn't spiritual. It is mental and is the way we experience life. Death is being unaware of this and living through your judged life experiences, the memories and the emotions of them. We are not living the life we wish. We are living through our conditioning. Life. Escaping death is escaping that. We're escaping the death of being unaware of living a life just blind to the fact that we're just bouncing off of our memories going, what the hell is up? All right, having said all that, let's look at the verse again. For there are 5 trees in paradise. There's 5 mental aspects in a place where you want to live happily. For they do not change summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. All of the cycles have stopped, and whoever knows them will not taste death. You will be happy. Let's find precedents for that elsewhere very quickly. I know I said I wouldn't do this, but You know what? I always want to shore these up. Okay, Buddha. I'm just going to read this one real quick. It comes from the Dhammapada, about 500 years before Jesus material. This is the first 2 verses right here in the Dhammapada. And this is Buddha this is my guru. Buddha, what's up? Tell me what life is about. I hurt. He gives me something to think about. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Now, what somebody has come along and told me is that evil thought is an analogous term. All of these are right here. They play out in the psyche, and that thinking with an evil thought sounds like, ooh, I'm going to get them. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Dastardly sort of stuff. When that's not exactly right. What this is what is evil to you, what hurts you. Maybe something happened to you one time, you got raped, you got molested, somehow there's an abuse, and this keeps happening. Something acts out, you freak out, it hurts. That's an evil thing right there. And it happened because of an event that happened that is now being held in such a manner with a memory and an emotional charge that creates this right here. Now, if a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, if any person has had something like that happen to them, pain follows them like the wheel, round and around, follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. I am this verse. I am the foot of the ox that draws the pain is following me as long as I'm holding this. Now, the very next verse, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. So no difference there. Negative, positive. Let's see what happens. There's a duality going to show up here. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves him. A shadow that never leaves is not cycling. It's not happening. This is like the 5 trees in paradise right here. Held in different ways. You have to know how to read it to know that they're teaching the same thing. At the core, with different outer language. But you read the language always conceptually. All right, where am I going? What are these 5 things? How do we use them to interact now? This is really setting up what is going on and why it's this way. The stories are this way. There is a point, I will tell you, where we have a conscious experience. We store it away as a result. That can be a pain that we've got that continues to act out. We finally get to a point where we go, oh boy, that thing that I'm holding and hiding away, I see that me holding and hiding it away is the actual issue. I need to actually emerge it and resolve it. I've got to find some way to look at it in such a way that I'm no longer ashamed, that I no longer feel hatred, that there's a forgiveness, that somehow this emotional charge that I'm feeling that's causing me to flow through life in that way and have that, what I would call a spiritual experience, but it's not. It's a real life experience that feels like it's spiritual. It's coming from the background someplace. Where is that? It's someplace that seems kind of nebulous. We just are not familiar with it. Ultimately, of course, we can eventually identify this as the nature of the emotional state that we're holding on to, our experiences that continue to connect us with things in life in a large collective that we're not aware of. And we continue to experience life as a result based on what is up here that we don't even want to mess with, waiting for something afterwards. When at the core, they're telling you, ooh, if you can do it, turn inward, do it now. Okay, is there something after or not? I don't know. What I do know is there's something here right now that people are ignoring, and I'm not going to ignore it. Okay, so I'm going after it. The template is very consistent. Now, we have to change the emotional state. We do this by taking our consciousness. When you remember something, you're like, ooh, I don't want to deal with it. You try to forget about it. You try to, what can I focus on to try to not think about that? When in actuality, that thing is trying to emerge and we don't like it. So when it's time to heal, what we realize is that the consciousness is just dead fearful of this. I don't like the way it feels. There's a part of us that is the higher awareness that exists that doesn't feel the emotions. We don't practice with that. We don't look at it. We don't understand it very well. We need to get there. That is what is called God in the material. There is a point where we have to let that memory and the higher awareness all coexist within the consciousness and allow that turmoil to experience, except that instead of it being out of control, we're looking at it very specifically in a way to heal it. We are emerging it. Now, do you know why this is difficult to see in Abrahamic material? Do you know what an altar is? Look at this. I'm going to read this real quick, and I'm not going to describe it a whole lot, but I'm just going to go read verse 6 and 7 here. This is from Genesis. So Jacob came to Luz, which is the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother. Okay, the face of the brother here is going to replicate lots of other material. The brother is an analog for your earlier self. When you're first unaware, at some point we wake up and go, boy, I'm going to turn inward. I'm going to do something different. We are now separating. We're creating an altar and we're getting ready to talk to God. So right here we have, and Canaan is what? Canaan is the land we're going to. We're looking to get to a happy place. We're building an altar to communicate with God. We're going to be, okay, earlier we just did the paradise, kingdom of heaven within, all of that, promised land. Canaan, same category. There's going to be repetitive things going on here. Where do you want to go? There's all kinds of places to go. Every one of them means the same mental place, different languages. What they're doing in their culture for life is they're burning animals to God. God. This is how we get God good graces. You know, it's like the Aztecs, killing people. Oh yeah, we're doing things, whatever, giving sacrifices. They're doing the same thing. Animal sacrifices, probably human sacrifice as well. That was the way they did things. So the analogs are going to fit in their culture. It's something that's going to carry. What it really means, though, is that this point up here where I am now, blending those things together, that is me providing a burnt offering to God. Here's my memory. I'm going to experience it here at the altar, which is this place in my mind, my consciousness, where I'm going to let that flow. That's too thick to take people through. So I'm just going to jump right to what those 5 things are and put it in plain language for the rest of the video. Okay, let's get started. All right, let's just talk about these things. The biggest thing we have to work with, and everything we have to work with, is in our conscious. Actually, there are some peripheral things that we're working with. One of them looking outward and one of them looking inward. One of them goes to the basement, to the memories and to the self, to what we have become based on where we came from and what experiences we had and the memories we hold as a result. And also the inward one, where we get to the higher self that exists outside of the physical self. Now, when we were first born, that's exactly where we were. At that point, we were at that point, our brain is completely connected with that higher self, the universe, the cosmos, whatever it is that is there. Okay, but it's just not even go there. We're emergent from that. We're living organisms, but are you aware? We don't have consciousness for a while. That's a difficult term too. Some people say you're conscious because you're alive. What I'm talking about here is being self-aware. I know as a child that in the womb and then up to about maybe 4 or 5 years old, where I've got sparse little bits and pieces of memories, and then gradually more memories come about as life goes on. At first, there are none there. And the reason that is because my brain is not developed enough. I have not had enough experiences. I have not made enough connections. I have not processed enough with my eyes, my ears, my smell, my taste, all of those things, what I'm experiencing in the world has not occurred enough yet. When you're born, you can't even see yet. So there's a developmental point in the beginning where we are living from that higher self. But guess what? You don't have the mental cognition to be aware of it, but it's there. We will find it later, but not until we've developed our conscious capacity to understand things. All right, so eventually we get to where we've got our consciousness. Let's just go right there right now. That's exactly what we're using. I'm thinking through my memories. I'm interfacing with my mouth and my expressions and trying to, this is a conscious process, but I'm pulling from different places to do it. The consciousness is the interface to the world. You're listening, you're absorbing, you're processing. Sometimes you're thinking, I see how that goes. Oh, my life this way, that way. Something, somehow. We're engaging our conscious at that point. When we start off in life, everything comes into the conscious from the outside world. We don't have anything inside yet. It has to go from outside to inside. Then we begin to live through what we've gathered and accumulated. And those are experiences and knowledge. Boy, I want to go into the evolution part of why. I got to be careful I don't get too deep into this stuff. I can say that it would have been very important for us to have fears and memories evolving. That's what we're doing now. We have fears and memories, but they're not okay. However, you look and go, why do we have those? At some point in time early on, 2 million years ago, humanity would have done us good to have fears and memories. Remember last time this group went over there? Half of us got eaten by a tribe of something over there. Don't go there. I'm afraid of that, and that is not okay. Over there, I'm very happy about that place. When we go there this time of year, we always get this kind of fruit or something like that. We're going to develop memories that are important for our survival. They're physical, important for our survival. The problem is that's what's in place right now, and we're applying them to things that are not important to our survival. They still feel the same way. That lion eating me is terrifying. Telling you that I got molested is just as terrifying. Why the hell is that? It's one mechanism. We got to know that. We think we're all complicated, but we're actually very simple, working through processes that we don't understand. It is normal for us to feel scared of something. The problem is we apply that fear to things that we should not be afraid of. Okay, so, all right, we got that. Now, what happens, we have our life experiences, and of course, we're all born with a certain things that in our DNA, there's things about us that we cannot change that we're born with. But once we're born and we're in an environment where we're having experiences, we become products somehow of those experiences. Not everybody exactly the same, but generally so. There may be 20 kids in there just going, oh, I'm a piece of crap, I'm a piece of crap, I'm a piece of crap, because they're being told that. While one of them in there are going, up yours. I'll show you when I'm big enough. So it may not work the same for everybody. There's always that one out there that's like, yeah, up yours. Okay, I got off subject on those things, don't I? Kind of go all over the place. That's what happens when you come from where I come from, and then, not a structured place. It comes from all over. So, okay. At any rate, at some point in time, then we have stored those memories and we live through those memories. And some of them we invite. We get triggered all the time. We get triggered for bad things. We get triggered on good things. Seeing something that makes you mad because it has something to do with your past and you launch off on it is the same mechanism that makes you go, oh, you smell that? That reminds me of grandma's pie in the wintertime and oh my gosh, you're being triggered again. These are memories coming out of one nature or another. They're all the same mechanism. We need to know that when things are coming out of us that are not okay, we can interrupt that. The reason that they're coming out of us not okay is because we're holding them as memories not okay. And the only way to make them stop acting out is to make it so that they are okay. They stop being something that are shameful, hurtful, whatever the case may be. Now, that's tough. That is difficult. We don't like looking at them. And so as a result, what do? We put them away. We put them away. We put them away. We don't deal with them. Understand them as a memory and that we live through our memories and it's going to continue to come up. And whenever there's some reason for that memory to emerge, it is going to emerge. And if it is in a negative way to you, you have to understand the reason it's there is because we had an experience that we judged at one point in time, gave it an emotional charge, and that's the way we're still holding it. That if we want the experience to change, the only way to change it is to change the emotional charge. You cannot change the memory. You must find a way to take its power. Understanding we gave it its power. We had an experience. Somebody else might have had the same experience and go, I don't care. Or they're not affected by it in the same way. These are mental processes. And there's different things that hurt different people. Two people might have had, a bunch of different experiences while one is hurt by these things over here and the other one's like, oh, that didn't bother me. But this stuff over here does. And that one, the other one, this is very personal. What hurts and haunts you? Not what's right or wrong and what does somebody else say and is that a balance or that? What hurts you? Right there. Turn inward. Now, how do we resolve those things? How do we look at them? The pain, shame, hurt, they're not always that way. Sometimes maybe it's something else. War country. You've seen your family get brutalized in something like that. I've never had that happen, so I'm going to be careful in that area and tell you that there is no quick fix on these things. There's no switch to flip. Actually, there is. But here's the deal. When you flip that switch, it might take 20 years for the light to gradually get to full brightness. Okay, flipping a switch means turning inward, but it doesn't mean it just instantly illuminates, or that if you illuminate it, that it instantly feels okay. We are very habituated. That is how we function. We function with wired-in neural pathways. That is organic habituation. We are so practiced at being that way that is how we live. That is how we survive. That is how we exist. Except now we got a society and things are not working quite right. It doesn't fit anymore. Now we're afraid of a lion eating us when it's really just, some childhood thing that isn't resolved. And it's so bad that it is absolutely destroying my life, where before it would have just been watch out for the lion. Now it's like, God, I hate everybody and everything. We're getting messed up. We have to separate ourselves from those things. Now, this is where we need to engage the higher self. This is where we got to spend a little time. Okay, let's talk about this. This is perhaps the most difficult one. And I don't mean it's difficult to talk about. I mean, it might be difficult to see or difficult to interact with. The higher self, as I said in the beginning, is where we first come from, but we were not aware of it. Now, what can we do? There's a couple of ways we can observe it. This one is the most common one I can think of. Almost everybody that has issues is going to be waking up at some point during their sleep in fits. 3, 4 in the morning, something like that. Seems to be natural. That's probably something from evolution as well. But there's a point in time where we wake up not completely rested and completely haunted by something. And you could be laying there in bed going, I got to do this or that, or this person, I hate this, I hate that, and I can't resolve this. I don't know what these things are going through and through in your mind. Your conscious is having an experience that isn't even, it's coming from memories at that point. You're in bed. Okay, you're not facing the boss. You're not facing the coworkers. You're not facing the family. You're not facing all of those things at that moment. You're in bed, but here you are living that experience through the memories. You can't stop that. People can tell you got to quit doing that. Okay, guess what? Years later, you're still doing it. How do you stop doing it? Okay, start observing something. You will notice that as this is going on, there's a point in time where there should be a little voice and a dialogue going on in your mind, where there's a part of you that is an aware part, where when you experience it, you're like, I don't feel the emotion. Everything is okay. You got to get some sleep. Relax. We can fix it tomorrow. We'll do something else. You got to resolve it. What do we do? Conscious, we are like, I don't like the fear of this. What is that? You don't listen to that voice. Well, you think, oh, that's a good idea. But what happens? The haunting comes back. This part out here, that's the higher awareness right there. That could come up at many other times. You could look at yourself, look at your own self, pick out a memory from your past. Something that has you feeling shame or anger or hurt or something. Go and pull up that memory and feel it. Experience it. Feel the emotion of it. Now, while you're doing that, take another part of you and stand outside of yourself, looking at yourself. While you're feeling that, imagine another part of you that's looking at you from outside, or is maybe way out in space, looking at Earth and looking at humanity so far away, you don't even feel the emotions anymore. That part of our awareness is our higher awareness. That is what was there to begin with, but we couldn't figure it out. We needed to have some life experience before we interact with it. That is what we have to nurture. I had an experience one time where I was pulling up a memory. It was a childhood thing that, as I recalled it, I was bawling. And normally things like that, I would go, God, I don't even want to think about that. At this point in time, I'm remembering what to do. And I'm saying, oh, this memory is coming out. My conscious is experiencing it. It's coming up into my memory, activating the glands, making me feel an emotional way. And normally I would go, I don't like that feeling. I'm turning away from it. This time I'm like, oh, I know what's going on. Bring the higher awareness in. There's different facets of you. Operate from here. You got the feelings, you got the memories, all of that is going on. There's this blend going on in your head. But the higher awareness, you know it's there and you're saying, yep, let it out. This is what you need to do. It's okay. Cry. Don't hold back. Look at it. Think it through. Bring it through. They're hidden memories that are of an emotional charge, and they will show you what the emotional charge is. Look at yourself. Observe. Then figure out a way to change the emotional state. This comes really from emerging things, from letting the other person off the hook. That's kind of a different process. It's a healing thing. I'll get into that a little bit more in the end. But really what we're doing here with, we now have the consciousness involved, the higher awareness involved, the subconscious, which is holding everything involved, plus the memory that is there. All four are being blended right here in the brain. Only this time you're going, let it happen. Give this offering. Burn it off, whatever it needs, up in smoke, We need to dissipate this. It's from the earth and it needs to go to a higher place, which means really ultimately I've got a hurt memory from something that I need to find a way to understand that I'm okay and that the way that I'm holding it is continuing to hurt me. So we're using the higher self right there as, you know what? All of this is happening in the conscious and in our knowledge. That's why it's important to know this. It isn't as though the higher awareness comes in and takes over. It doesn't. The higher awareness is allowed in by the conscious and by the knowledge. And the conscious has to say, okay, I'm bringing in the memory. I'm bringing in the higher self. Let's go. Let's put them together. Let's work this. Let's illuminate it. Let's heal it. Let's look at it until I go, psh. Yeah, it happens to a lot of people. I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm going to have a wonderful life. That person was screwed up. They never got it figured out. They're a part of a chain. They got screwed. Everybody. Blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on. That's society emerging. And you know what? That's where I came from. And I'm going to rise above it. Somehow we get ourselves mentally in a different modality. Again, we are very habituated to not be like that. That sounds wonderful. You sit and listen to it. 20 minutes later, you're off doing something else going, damn this, damn that. We slip right back into habituation. There's a point you have to know that and keep catching because you're interrupting a habit. That's okay. Don't get frustrated with that. Know what's going on. We get frustrated. We get angry. We get short with ourselves. We get hard on ourselves and it fails. We need to sit back and go, whew, yep, here it comes again. I'm going to deal with it again. Yep, here it comes again. Each time I do it, it gets less and pretty soon, you know what? It doesn't come up anymore. I can see that happening. I'm going to be okay with it. There's a healing process that emerges, but the application of it is exactly what I'm talking about. There's a point though where when you have looked at it enough, that you feel okay about it enough, you should be able to, as a final barometer, a yardstick, as it were, for how far you've healed, is if you can communicate. I got molested. Okay, there was a time in my life, there was nobody ever going to hear that. I was so ashamed of that. It was like, oh, people are going to think that, what the? Then at some point you're like, yeah, everybody got molested, damn near everyone, or played around or something. It's like, you're not that special. You need to get out of that. And then at some point you're like, yeah, whatever. You can still see people around you though, that get, the people that are okay with you don't have an issue. The people that go, thank you for teaching me that, are trying to heal too. The people that say, you freak, get away from me, have got their issues, the same ones, and they are angry about it. Right there. You can see it. The walls are up. We need to make sure that if we do talk it out with people, they're people that are like this. We're like each other's psychologist. Man, I did this, I did that, I whatever it is. Well, the other person going, man, yeah, stuff happens to me too. We're animals. We're trying to evolve. It's okay. What we need to do is make sure that we are okay with what we're carrying so that because we're carrying it. And because it continues to affect you and it continues to flow or cause the flow in your life and the continued experiences. I don't like this over here. Guess what? You're going to keep flowing through it anyway if you don't resolve it. You don't like it. You don't like the life. You have to resolve the reason that's driving it. And the higher awareness, that's it. Learn that. Practice that. When you have time, get outside yourself. Look at yourself in such a way that you're like, from here I don't feel those emotions. Find that place and practice getting there. And when it comes up and you catch yourself, oh, I'm halfway through being triggered again. I just launched off. Engage the higher self to come in. It's not going to catch right away. It's not going to be instantaneous. We are organically habituated. You're changing neural pathways, the nature of them, an electrochemical storage. That if sometimes something is small, ooh, I made a mistake, bingo, fixed. Other times it's like, God, I've held this for years, this anger, this hatred. It might take a long time to let that one go. It's gonna vary. Know that depending on the nature of it. It's energy based. And it's frequency based, but we don't care about the frequency. We care about the emotion. That's like saying, is this red or blue or green? It's light. What we have is emotion. Is it grandma's apple pie or is it, I hate you? Those are different. Look at those colors. The color of emotion. How does it make you feel? And then the higher self engage. Okay. Not everything is a healing thing like that. When I was young, I was raised in a very severe, it was abusive. It was not okay. It was kind of like a Pentecostal Southern Baptist sort of, from that realm. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Shut up. Little kids are to be seen, not heard. I'll beat you and whip you. Belts, all that. It was normal. Spare the rod, spoil the child. God wants you to be beat. Better say your prayers before you go to bed or you're going to die at night. All of those things. We were abused. We were whipped with belts. We were told, you're worthless, you're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. And me and my brother, Larry, he was a year and a half older than me. One day he learned about heaven in Sunday school, and that day he hung himself in the woods. I went out and found him. I had an experience. I heard Larry's dead before I got there. I knew something had happened. There's something that's supernatural, spiritual going on in the background. This is all normal stuff. This is our brains talking together. This is things happening in the background it's like I heard a sound way off in the distance. I saw a flash way over there. I sensed something off in the distance, but it didn't come to me because it's coming through a sixth sense. It couldn't come to my brain until I was prepared enough to receive it. And not everybody's going to do it that way, but it's the same mechanism as anything else going on. We're living in a collective here, and we're experiencing the same field that we're flowing through. But the purpose of that story was that it was devastating to me, and that there was no amount of that I can think of where you can sit and look at that and go, I'm going to think this through and make it okay in a short period of time. I don't think that really works. It depends on connections. I had younger brothers at the time that don't remember him. They were not affected by it. He and I were from a little older and from a previous marriage where, the abuse started there with cigarette butts, things like that, getting burned with stuff like that. So me and Larry were kind of pretty close knit. So when he left, that really devastated me. And it took a long time. I want to say that I think that things like that can happen. I'm just using my own personal experience. People have lost entire families. It doesn't hurt me anymore. You look back on it at some point and go, you know what? I'm not glad it happened. I don't wish anything. It is what it is. I have no control over it. I have to accept it. It sent me on a course. I can thank him. I got a picture of him right up here. Him and me together watching over us. It's like he kind of helped motivate me in life to go find this, What's responsible for taking my brother? It was his choices, I know, but there was just a load of information that we were given as kids that we were convinced of, that we couldn't understand why Jesus won't help us if he loves us. Yeah. I think there's times where stuff happens that it's not an easy fix. You have to find a way to be kind and gentle. You have to find a way to live okay. You have to find a way to sit quiet and peacefully someplace and think through things and put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I had to become Larry sometimes and pretend like I was him talking to me. I don't know if I did anything that would have been accurate, but I did something that made it so that my mind found an easier way to accept it so that I could live with it. Time goes on, and a lot of people lose people. It hurts, and it doesn't go away easily if the love is true. Okay. I guess I don't think I'm off subject here. What I'm suggesting is that there are things that we have to heal that are memories that we can interact with, and there are things that we can heal that we're not judging anything other than we feel incredible loss. Some people resolve that loss by the mental conviction of a belief that person is fine and that they're waiting for you and you're going to rejoin them. And who am I going to join? 11-year-old Larry? I don't know what. Sometimes you look for answers, and if you're looking for answers, you might not always find what you want to find. You're looking for answers. You're looking for the truth. Do I want to find Larry? Hell yeah. This is what I found. We have to use that higher awareness and realize that's where we come from. Somehow that is us in the background, that we're physical for a time and those other things are there and we're experiencing life through those memories. And that if we want to get to that higher place, we have to understand that those memories, that memory bundle, we got to set it off to the side. We got to somehow resolve it. But you don't just do that by saying, let it go. Okay, yeah, let it go. Does it go? No. You have to go interface with what hurts. And sometimes you can remember something that happened very specifically. Other times you're like, I don't know why something is happening. I've tried to let it all go. I have something I call chasing ghosts. I think I got old videos up on it somewhere. Sometimes there's memories in there that are parts of you from childhood or someplace in the past where you were sitting there stewing, feeling, I don't know, maybe sometimes suicidal, bad, long periods of time. And you're thinking about something that happened. You're off on your own someplace. That right there is wiring your brain at that time. It's like you're learning that right there. Those are still in place. Even though later you're thinking, oh, you know what? I'm okay. I can let all that stuff go. There's still bits of memories that are trying to act out. When you see that, you spend time. I would go off the way I did it. I would go off and just find some time in the desert. That's what I do. Anyway, so I would just be out there walking and thinking to myself, I don't know what it is. I would ponder it, be sitting down for a while, staring at the rocks and the sagebrush, looking at moss and lichens and watching little lizards or something like that. Eventually I'm off walking. An hour or two later, I might be down by the river, skipping stones across or something. And I catch myself in a childhood memory where I'm thinking of something that I go, oh, what is this? What is this? It's almost like a mechanism of, that song, the one sang by, what's that song? Then, when you're going through that process and you can't get it. And then later you go, oh, I know, it was Billy Joel, Piano Man, or something like that. It's that mechanism. You're sitting there going, I don't know what my problem is. There's something in there. And your brain will let you know. You have to be receptive to it and you have to give it time. Then you have to pay attention. When you catch yourself thinking of something, go, oh, here it is. Then I find myself, my little young Danny Paulson self, sitting in the woods crying and blubbering because he cut his brother out of the tree and everybody's picking on him for, because his brother, did something so stupid he wanted to leave and blah. Oh, it was horrific. I have to go find my little self and go, oh, damn, there I am sitting there in the ferns, bawling my eyes out. I have to approach myself in my mind from my new self, understanding that this is just a memory that I have to update. And I let it know. I just, in my mind, I pretend like I'm dealing with myself. Hey, little kid, how's it going? I talk to it. It disappears. It goes. Those are things that we have to do because they're there in the mind. Those are what I've run into. I don't know if everybody will run into the same thing. And there's people out there that might go, buddy, I got a lot more than that going on. So I can only talk about my experience. And this is what I get out of the interpretation of the ancient material. But it's hard to show that through the material. I think it's easier to show it through telling your experience. That's it, isn't it? You gotta be that city on the hill. Here's what happened. Here's what I did. Here's where I came from. This is how it hurt me. This is what I did to make it okay. Here's what I learned along the way. Here's what I want to pass along and share. But it's nothing that I can do that helps you. You have to look at it and go, I'll try that myself. Or not. It's a personal path. There's no other way. And it's not an easy thing. And you might just sit there and go, damn it, this hurts. How come it hurts again today? How come it hurts again tomorrow? Well, as time goes on, how come it keeps hurting? You interact with it, interface it with it, look at it, pretend you're the other person, talk, try to find ways of resolving the conflict that you feel and let that stuff lift off of you. Once the emotional charge is gone, the effect that it had is gone. If it is something that is shame, it is going to keep in this flow that you're going to keep experiencing shame because that's a part of you. If you get rid of that part of you, then that will cease to experience in life. We flow in the nature of the energy of the cosmos based on the nature of the energy of what we're holding in our mind, and that comes down to thoughts and emotions. Those are the beginning. Those are what we live through. And those are something we probably don't take with us. I finished this video, but went back to add this in. My mom is gone. I feel okay about talking about some of the situations. She would go into a rage. She would be the one standing over you just with veins popping out of her, just really drawn tight. Shut up, you're going to get more. Shut up. And you're screaming and yelling, I'm sorry, I won't do it. It just goes on and on. You'd be welted top to bottom. It was a tough thing. At some point, I learned enough to realize where my mom came from, and I understand she's a little girl being told, shut up. You're never going to amount to anything. You're worthless. Get over here. I'm going to beat you. Get on your knees. Come here. She got it worse. She got molested. There was a lot of things that happened. When I got molested, it wasn't at home. I ran away as a kid. But there's this cycle of things that are going on. But at some point I see, you know what? I was just next in line from a chain of unawareness. I am the lucky one. I get to be aware. Something like that actually, doing things like that actually help you heal. Instead of just sitting there going, I exist within my awareness. I exist within my awareness and my memories. You have to get out of that. You have to put yourself in other people's shoes. You have to look at somebody else's position. You've got to go beyond where they're coming from, even seeing that they came from someplace that they don't even tell you about, but you can infer that based on the way that they are and the way that they act. That at some point, the more you get out of yourself and continue to look at things, the less you are this little person living inside of your mind going, this happened to me. You have to get out of your head. You have to get out of your memories and understand that when we start this process, we're living through our memories. All right. Well, I hope this was fun, interesting, and not depressing to anyone. This is really, if you have any questions or comments, this is, in a nutshell, this is the material. This is how they're using it. You're looking at the stuff that you don't want to look at anyway, knowing what is going on, understanding why you're doing it, knowing that there's a process that if you can go through this is going to change your life and change your flow. But along the way, you may end up having life changes that you're like, I don't belong here anymore. These relationships no longer fit with me. I'm not that kind of person anymore. You will go through changes if you're making a real inner change. It will affect your the flow in life and your experience in life, your judgment in life, and the people that appeal to you and that you appeal to. This is the part, honestly, that makes me kind of nervous about it, because you're saying, you know what, if I read Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, everything Abrahamic, that this is it right here. This is the core template. How arrogant does that sound? How many toes are you going to step on? I didn't want to. I'm just looking for the answers. Okay. Stefan, hope that was helpful. Thank you for bringing me out of that shell. See you in the next video.